Imagine a world where uh, the product that everyone is just desperately buying doesn't actually make them any money.
Right. It sounds completely backward.
It totally is. But at the same time, governments are willing to basically start a Cold War just to get their hands on it.
Yeah, which is the exact bizarre state of artificial intelligence today.
It really is. It's kind of like walking into a casino and seeing this massive contradiction playing out right in front of you.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, like on one side of the floor, you've got these corporate executives, right? And they're just sweating through their suits, frantically trying to figure out how the penny slots work just to make a single buck off their new tech.
Just desperate for any kind of commercial return.
Exactly. But then you look over to the VIP section, and there's this group of global superpowers who aren't even playing the games.
Right, they're playing a totally different game.
Yeah. They are trying to buy the casino, the hotel next door, and the power grid that runs the entire city. And they're acting like it is a matter of absolute existential survival.
It's an incredibly jarring contrast to watch unfold in real time because that casino image, it perfectly captures the cognitive dissonance we're seeing across the whole tech sector right now.
It's wild to witness. So welcome to today's deep dive. We have a truly fascinating stack of articles in front of us from the Daily Tech Reader for July 22, 2026.
It is a heavy stack today, too.
It really is. And our mission today is to decode this massive contradiction. Because on one hand, companies are struggling to prove AI actually makes a profit.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, global superpowers and massive corporations are spending just, billions to lock down AI hardware as if their lives depend on it.
Okay.
Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We're going to take you through the hard truth about AI revenue, the messy reality of deploying these models on the front lines, and why AI has suddenly morphed into a geopolitical weapon.
Plus, stick around because we've got two crucial deadlines every developer listening needs to know about this week.
Yes, absolutely. But to really understand where we're going and why the global stakes are suddenly so high, we have to look at where the money currently isn't.
Right.
So before we talk about the billions being spent by governments, let's look at what this technology is actually earning in the commercial sector today.
And the numbers are pretty surprising.
They really are. There's a new global study out from HCL Tech, and they surveyed about 500 decision makers. The data here is incredibly telling. Like 90% of these executives say AI is transforming their workflows.
Which you'd expect, yeah.
Right. But only a shocking 18% say it is delivering a significant revenue impact. 18%.
Yeah, the dividing line in that data is what you really need to pay attention to. The 18% who are actually seeing a revenue impact, the study calls them AI leaders, they're doing two very specific things differently than everyone else.
Okay, what are they doing?
Well, first, they are integrating the technology directly into their core business strategy. It's not just a side project. And second, they are running highly structured upskilling programs for their human employees.
So they're actually training people.
Exactly. The other 82%, the group they labeled followers, they are just endlessly running pilot programs.
So they're just testing it forever.
Yeah, pilot purgatory. If you're listening to this and your company just bought a bunch of enterprise software licenses and told everyone to, just play around with it, you are in that 82%. You're playing with the tech, but you aren't operationalizing it.
And you can actually see that hesitation trickling directly into the wider enterprise market. I mean, just look at IBM's Q2 earnings dropping tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's a perfect example.
On the surface, they hit $17.2 billion in revenue, which, sounds fantastic. And their EPS is at 2.93.
Right.
But they just quietly cut their full-year constant currency revenue guidance down to just 4 to 5% growth.
Which is notably below what people were expecting.
Exactly. And this is despite their CEO, Arvind Krishna, maintaining just total, unshakable confidence in their AI and quantum portfolio. It feels like the boardroom is saying one thing, but the balance sheet is telling a completely different story.
It tells you that the enterprise adoption cycle is vastly slower than the hype cycle. I mean, think about it from a structural level.
Okay.
The tools are incredibly powerful, yes. But rebuilding your entire corporate infrastructure, retraining thousands of employees, and rewriting your security protocols to safely use generative AI, that takes years, not months.
Right, you can't just flip a switch.
No, you can't. The enterprise pipeline is clogged because companies are stuck in that pilot purgatory.
And that hesitation in the enterprise space, I think it explains a really curious move we saw from OpenAI this week.
It's a small business thing.
Yes. They just launched a brand new program called ChatGPT for small business. It's specifically targeting companies with under 500 employees.
And it comes with bundled onboarding and discounted access, right?
Yeah. Now, I have to form a hypothesis here and honestly push back on the standard PR narrative for a second.
Go for it.
Is this open AI generously helping out the little guy, or is this actually a sign of desperation? Because to me, it feels like the massive enterprise market might be saturating or, like you said, stalling out in that pilot purgatory.
That's a fair point.
So now they have to aggressively pivot downstream to small businesses just to keep their growth numbers up for their investors. I mean, is this like building a multi-billion-dollar factory before you even know what product you're going to manufacture?
Well, I think that's a very sharp, if maybe slightly cynical way to look at it. But the mechanics of the market totally back up your theory.
Okay, how so?
Enterprise sales cycles are notoriously long and complex. You have rigorous compliance checks, data privacy audits, board approvals, legal reviews. It goes on and on.
It takes forever.
Exactly. But contrast that with a 50-person marketing agency. A small business owner can just swipe a corporate credit card and deploy the software across their entire team on a Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, right. Instantly.
Yeah. So if your enterprise revenue is hitting a bottleneck, pivoting to the sub-500 employee market is a highly logical survival tactic. It keeps the revenue engine running while the big fish take their time.
Okay, that makes sense. But the revenue question gets even trickier and, frankly, a lot more destructive when you look at the consumer side of the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Alphabet is also reporting their earnings tonight, and everyone in the industry is watching to see if Google's AI search is cannibalizing its own core advertising revenue.
Which is the golden goose.
Right. We have fresh data from Cloudflare showing a 40% drop in human web traffic from AI crawlers over a 12-month period. 40%.
It's massive.
So going back to that factory analogy, they built this shiny new AI factory, but is it destroying their business?
It's actually much more dangerous than that. To use your analogy, it's like building a new, incredibly expensive state-of-the-art factory that accidentally demolishes the old factory that was actually paying all your bills.
Wow. Okay, break that down for us.
Let's look at the mechanics of how this works. For 20 years, Google's model was to give you a list of links. You click a link, you visit a publisher's website, and you see an ad.
Right, and that ad pays Google and the publisher.
Exactly. But if an AI simply reads all those websites and gives you a summarized answer instantly, what they call a zero-click search, you never click the link.
And if you don't click the link, you don't see the ad.
Bingo. That 40% drop in human traffic means the foundational business model of the entire digital economy is actively fracturing. Alphabet has to prove tonight that they have a bridge to a new, profitable business model, not just that they built a cooler search engine.
So if the big whales aren't buying software yet, and the core consumer business model is literally fracturing, these tech giants are being forced to aggressively lower costs and rethink their roadmaps.
Yeah, and on the front lines, that scramble is getting incredibly messy.
It really is. Let's look at Google's weird Gemini strategy this week. They just shipped Gemini 3.6 Flash, and it's priced super aggressively at 1.50 per million input tokens and 7.50 per million output tokens. They also released a stripped-down flashlight for a high-volume pipeline.
Okay, sure.
But Gemini 3.5 Pro is mysteriously missing. It just vanished from the roadmap entirely.
Yeah, poof.
I have to imagine this is an accident. Are they looking at the benchmarks, looking at the massive cost of compute, and just deciding to cut their losses?
That is exactly what is happening behind the scenes. The frantic pace is finally catching up with the physics of compute. Google quietly confirmed that pre-training for Gemini 4 is already actively underway.
Wait, they're skipping straight to 4?
Basically, yeah. And crucially, they are using their new frozen V2 chips, which they claim are 6 to 10 times more efficient.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they're making a massive calculated gamble here. They want to skip a troubled generation. I mean, training a frontier model costs hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, it's not cheap.
No. If 3.5 Pro wasn't hitting the benchmarks they needed to beat the competition, why waste that compute and marketing capital on it? Cut your losses, leverage the new, massively more efficient chip architecture to lower your overhead, and bet everything on leapfrogging the entire field with Gemini 4.
But that rush to deploy and cut costs is causing absolute chaos for the actual humans using these platforms.
Oh, you mean the meta situation?
Yes. The New York Times just published this brutal report on Meta's AI moderator system. It is incorrectly deleting real, legitimate business accounts on Instagram and Facebook.
It's a nightmare for those users.
We're talking about one specific account with nearly 1 million followers that was just wiped out in an automated error. Imagine building your livelihood for years and it's gone in a millisecond.
Horrifying.
And the absolute kicker here, when these businesses appeal the ban, the appeal is routed right back to the exact same AI model that made the error in the first place.
It's a perfectly closed loop of digital bureaucracy. I mean, Kafka would be taking notes.
Seriously.
But let's look at why this is happening. AI models, especially at this scale, hallucinate. They make statistical errors based on pattern matching.
Right.
When a human reviews an appeal, they can understand context, nuance, intent. But human moderators are expensive. So when a company removes the human from the appeals process to save money and relies entirely on an AI, they aren't just making a mistake. They are institutionalizing the hallucination at scale.
That is so well put.
They are building a system that is fundamentally incapable of realizing it is wrong.
And we're seeing people try to fight back against this rising tide of AI noise, but even the defense mechanisms are messy.
Like what's happening with Substack.
Exactly. Substack just partnered with a company called Pangram to flag AI-generated content on their platform. Now, any text over 100 words gets an AI generation estimate.
Okay.
But at the exact same time, Epoch AI just published this rigorous research warning that these AI detectors still have incredibly high false positive rates.
Which is a huge problem.
Yeah. Substack is trying to soften the blow by saying, hey, it's just an indicator, not a definitive verdict. But let's be real. If you're a professional writer, a false positive labeling your hard work as a machine generation could ruin your reputation overnight.
It highlights a profound crisis of trust. We are rushing to build flawed AI to detect the flawed AI that we rushed to build in the first place.
Wow.
The entire software ecosystem right now is a bit of a house of cards. The frontier models are slipping their deadlines, automated moderation is failing spectacularly, and detection mechanisms are unreliable. Which
brings up a reality that completely breaks my brain.
What's that?
If the software side is dealing with missing ROI, if only 18% of companies are seeing revenue and the models are a messy house of cards, who on earth is placing these massive hardware orders?
The plot thickens.
Because the hardware pipeline tells a completely different story. It is a juggernaut that never sleeps. I mean, Supermicro stock is absolutely surging this week because they reported an order backlog for AI servers of $60 billion.
Unbelievable.
$60 billion. That is roughly 2 years' worth of their recent revenue just sitting in a backlog. Data center demand is clearly not plateauing despite any regulations. So who is buying this?
This is the pivot point of our entire deep dive today, and it requires completely reframing how we look at this technology.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's not just standard tech companies or startups buying this hardware anymore to run customer service chatbots. The buyer profile has fundamentally shifted. The entities buying $60 billion worth of servers are anticipating a future where AI compute isn't just software.
What is it then?
It is the foundational resource of the global economy.
And the chip makers are feeding that beast with hardware that sounds like science fiction. NVIDIA just dropped the white paper and benchmark results for its custom Vera CPU.
Those specs are wild.
They really are. We're talking 88 Olympus cores, 176 spatial multi-threaded threads, and a staggering 1.2 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth using LPDDR5X. Okay, let's pause and translate that. 1.2 terabytes per second. What does that actually mean for the models?
To put 1.2 terabytes per second in perspective, it means this single chip can process the data equivalent of a massive multi-story university library in a single second.
No way. That's insane.
It is. And the reason this matters, the why behind the specs, is all about bottlenecks. Large AI models don't just need computing power, they need to move massive amounts of data back and forth instantaneously.
Right.
If the memory bandwidth is slow, the processor just sits idle waiting for data. NVIDIA is building hardware specifically designed to obliterate that data bottleneck.
And NVIDIA isn't the only one moving aggressively. Intel Foundry just snagged Fortinet to manufacture custom firewall chips. It's their first public network security customer, which proves they're diversifying beyond just standard PCs.
Definitely.
And on the management side, SkyPilot just raised $20 million to expand their orchestration platform. This lets developers seamlessly route their AI workloads across AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and even on-premise hardware. I assume multi-cloud's becoming the standard because no one wants to be locked into a single vendor when compute is this scarce.
Precisely. When hardware is the new oil, you don't want to be entirely dependent on a single pipeline. Developers need the flexibility to route their workloads to wherever the compute is cheapest and most available at any given second.
Okay, before we get too deep into the geopolitical weeds of all this hardware, I want to offer a quick space palette cleanser for you listening.
Oh, I love these.
Just a reminder to take a breath, because not all incredible technology is AI. NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope is currently sitting at Kennedy Space Center, and all systems are nominal.
That's great news.
It is launching in exactly 39 days on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy. This is a $4.3 billion wide-field infrared observatory. It is fully on schedule, and it's going up to study dark energy, exoplanets, and the fundamental physics of the universe. Sometimes it's just nice to remember we are still doing incredible, old-school astrophysics.
It is a beautiful reminder. But even as we look to the stars, back on Earth, the gravity of the AI hardware boom is pulling everything into its orbit. Which answers your question about who is buying that $60 billion backlog of servers.
Right, it's nations, isn't it? Governments.
Yes. We have officially crossed the threshold where artificial intelligence is no longer being treated as a commercial software product. It is being treated as a geopolitical weapon and a matter of supreme national security.
And the sources today highlight this shift dramatically. Let's look at the escalating tension between the U.S. and China.
It's escalating fast.
Yeah. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is actively threatening extreme economic sanctions against Chinese AI model makers. To be clear, we are just impartially reporting on the policies being proposed here, but the scale of this is a massive escalation.
Huge.
It goes way beyond the previous microchip export controls. This new proposal would actively restrict Chinese AI developers from accessing U.S. financial systems, U.S. cloud services, and dollar-denominated markets.
You have to look at the mechanics of what this actually achieves. If implemented, the U.S. is weaponizing the U.S. dollar and its dominance in cloud infrastructure to completely choke off a geopolitical competitor's AI development cycle.
Wow.
It treats frontier AI models exactly the same way the international community treats uranium enrichment. It is a digital blockade.
And that blockade mentality is terrifying America's own allies. Europe is actively panicking about this exact dynamic.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, the U.S. temporarily restricted foreign access to Anthropic's models. That sent absolute shockwaves through Europe. Microsoft President Brad Smith told Reuters that this single event made technology independence an urgent operational concern across regulated European industries.
And that panic led directly to a massive announcement this week.
Right. Microsoft and Mistral just signed a multi-billion-dollar EU deal. They're building an AI infrastructure stack in Europe using thousands of NVIDIA Vera Rubin GPUs, targeting 1 gigawatt of power capacity by 2030.
Let's linger on this for a second because this is arguably the most important shift of the decade. The specific technical requirement of that Microsoft and Mistral deal is what is known as sovereign AI.
Sovereign AI. Okay, explain that.
This massive 1 gigawatt infrastructure is designed to operate completely physically disconnected from U.S. clouds. Think about the why from their perspective. If you are running a major hospital network in Paris or the central bank in Frankfurt, you simply cannot put your critical infrastructure on an AI model that a politician in Washington can just switch off overnight with the stroke of a pen.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. Sovereign AI ensures that your local data stays on local hardware under local legal jurisdiction, completely immune to foreign sanctions.
That fear of foreign reliance perfectly explains the lobbying numbers we're seeing. The Q2 federal lobbying disclosures are out, and Anthropic just outspent NVIDIA.
Which is saying something.
Yeah, Anthropic spent $1.97 million this quarter, up 26%, while OpenAI spent $1.2 million. And what exactly are they lobbying about? Cybersecurity, cloud computing, and defense procurement.
They are reading the writing on the wall. They know the enterprise market is stalling. They realize the biggest, most reliable customer of the next decade isn't a Fortune 500 company trying to automate marketing emails.
It's not.
No, it's the Pentagon and its international equivalents.
Which perfectly contextualizes Google's other major release this week. Alongside the standard Gemini models, they released a variant called Gemini 3.5 Flash Cyber. But you and I can't buy it.
Yep.
It's restricted strictly as a pilot for governments and trusted enterprise partners like Salesforce and Palo Alto networks. It powers something called CodeMender, which is an automated vulnerability patching agent. Google is explicitly treating this AI variant as offense-capable infrastructure, not a commercial product.
Exactly. We have to look at how this works in practice. When an AI can automatically find and patch zero-day vulnerabilities in a nation's power grid, or theoretically find and exploit those same vulnerabilities in an adversary's grid, you don't sell it on a $20 monthly subscription tier.
No, definitely.
And lock it down. When you realize that every major nation and sovereign bloc is trying to build their own private, walled-off AI fortress, that $60 billion server backlog at Supermicro suddenly makes total terrifying sense.
Okay, let's bring this massive geopolitical shift back down to earth for you, the listener, especially those of you actively building software pipelines this week. Because that fear of getting locked into a walled garden makes what's happening on the developer front incredibly relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
There are two massive dates you need to circle on your calendar right now. First, the DeepSeek API migration deadline. It is July 24th, just 2 days from now.
Don't miss this one.
Right. They are completely retiring the legacy DeepSeek Chat and DeepSeek Reasoner model aliases. There is no grace period here. If your production pipeline is still pinging those old IDs on Thursday, you aren't going to get a warning. You're going to get hard API errors, and your app will break.
It is the strictest operational deadline in the infrastructure space this month. If you are a developer, you need to update your routing logic immediately. Do not let your applications fail because you missed a simple alias update.
And then, here's where it gets really interesting. July 27th, just 5 days from now, Moonshot AI is scheduled to drop the Kimi K3. This isn't just another model update, it is the largest open-weight model release in human history.
The specs on this are absolutely staggering for an open-weight release. It boasts 2.8 trillion parameters.
Wow.
Yeah. It has a 1 million token context window and native vision capabilities built right in.
2.8 trillion. Let's translate that for a second. That is likely larger and more complex than the highly guarded proprietary models powering the top-tier commercial chatbots today.
Without doubt.
And a 1 million token window means you can feed it a dozen full-length novels or a massive code base all at once. If this performs anywhere near the closed models, it could completely reset the cost baseline for developers globally.
That's the game changer right there.
Yeah, you won't need to rely on the locked-down corporate APIs or navigate international sanctions if you can just download and deploy Kimi K3 on your own orchestration platforms.
That is exactly the appeal. It provides a vital escape hatch for developers. It allows you to build incredibly powerful tools without getting locked into the fractured geopolitical ecosystem we were just discussing. It democratizes the capability layer at a time when governments are trying to wall it off.
So, to synthesize the massive journey we've been on today, we started by looking at a commercial software landscape where only 18% of companies are seeing real revenue.
A sluggish start, for sure.
A landscape where companies are skipping model generations to save money, and automated AI is deleting real business accounts while grading its own homework. We asked a simple question. Who is spending billions if the software isn't making money?
And the answer is pretty clear now.
Yeah, that the commercial ROI might not even matter right now, because AI has transitioned from a software product into the absolute bedrock of national security and sovereign infrastructure.
And that leaves us with a critical long-term question to consider as we watch this industry evolve. Well, if European companies and governments now strictly require disconnected AI because they fear U.S. policy changes, and the U.S. actively sanctions China's access to cloud and financial systems, wait, scratch that, let me rephrase. If everyone is terrified of each other, what happens to the core concept of a global internet?
Oh, wow.
Are we watching the internet permanently fracture into regional, walled-off AI ecosystems right before our eyes? A splinter net driven entirely by AI nationalism?
It's an incredible, sobering thought to mull over. We're rushing to build these multi-billion-dollar data factories, but instead of producing software that connects the world, they might just be building the walls that divide it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the information around you, and we'll see you next time.